Bookworms, welcome to the Weekend Readers Book Club. Thank you for joining us. In this episode, I am planting the flag and going, I really dislike classical literature. I'm sorry if I've offended by anybody by that, but classic literature has been reconfirmed yet again. It is not in my wheelhouse to enjoy. In this episode, we are discussing the book by J.D. Salinger. It is Franny and Zooey. As discussed in the previous episodes, the reason we're reading this book is this was featured in the Jasper Jones novel that I really thoroughly enjoyed, and I thought, hey, we'll give it a go since it was name dropped in that book. So here is, well, I'll give you a little review of Franny and Zooey first. The book is broken into two parts. One story is about Franny, one story is about Zooey. The Franny story is a lot shorter. The Zooey story is a bit longer. However, they are somewhat intertwined, and we'll get into that shortly. So, I've read the book, and this is my review of Franny and Zooey by J.D. Salinger. Okay, we start with Franny. The story of Franny is the shortest story of the two. This story, a lot of it went over my head. They name drop and discuss literature and topics that just go over my head. And the story, in essence, is a girl. She arrives via train to see her boyfriend, who she hasn't seen for a while, but they write little love letters to one another. She arrives, they go to a restaurant, have some martinis, he has some frog legs, and she has a chicken sandwich, but she doesn't eat the chicken sandwich, but she seems to be having an anxiety attack or something. And then she gets up, and then she passes out. And that's the story. Oh, yeah, you could also add in there that she also mentions that she's really into some weird cult thing about praying to a Lord and Savior, but she has to do it in a certain way, and when she faints and wakes up, she's like muttering words to herself. So in essence, she might be praying. I read it, she just had a nervous breakdown. Actually, I thought she was pregnant in the story first, because she was just going to the bathroom and freaking out, and I was like, oh, maybe you got pregnant. But no, she just had a nervous breakdown, fainted, and started chanting to a religious idol that she believed in. It was a really, really weird short story, and I do not know what to make of it. The Zooey story, on the other hand, don't even get me started. So Franny and Zooey are sisters, right? And the Zooey story starts off fine. Then loopy head Franny comes into the picture because Zoe's at home with her mum and Franny's there for some reason. And she's just cuckoo still. And I was like, I'm out. So I read the story, but I just... why couldn't you write two different stories and they didn't feature the same people? I get that so I did some research afterwards, and I get that these two people are part of a family that potentially come up in other J.D. Salinger's books. So I probably get the raw end of it because I don't know the lore of the family. But the Zooey story started off well. Then Franny turned up, and I was like, I'm out. I don't want to deal with this lady. Because I just read the story about her having a nervous breakdown and chanting to some idol. And I'm like, you've lost the plot, lady. And then she's hearing the story. And I'm just like, yeah, I'm out. I got through it, but I can tell you that I didn't really pay much attention to it because I was like, go away, Franny. I don't want you in the story. And that sort of irked me a little bit. And I think that may have swayed me in relation to just not enjoying the Zooey story as much as I should have. But in essence, that's how this book made me feel. Because in essence, you read the Franny part, it finishes, and then the next chapter, you go directly into Zoe's story. So it's not two books per se. It's, the first chapter is Franny's story, then the second chapter is Zooey's story. But I understand, again, through the research that it was potentially published at two different times, so it may have actually made sense. However, I am planting a flag and going, classic books, I don't want to read anymore. I don't want to read classic books. I don't understand how this book and the last book, Breakfast at Tiffany's, I don't understand how these can be deemed classic literature. Like, I get it. Like I get that there are people and historians or literarians or whatever they're called, and they go, yes, this book meets our criteria to be a classic of all time. I get that. I'm not disputing the fact, and I get that those people do their job, and they probably do their job really well. But for me, I'm telling you, I don't understand how this book can be a classic when I've read other books that, in my opinion, are more classic than this. I mean, how we read 1984 and we read the equivalent to 1984, the other side one. Damn, what's that book called? I can't remember. That's how bad it is. That's a classic book. How? We even read the LeBron James biography this year. In my opinion, that's a classic book because it's one of the best basketball players in the world. So, I mean, I think it's probably potentially the eye of the beholder. But in saying that, I'm planting my flag and going, I'm probably not going to do any more classical books. So, yeah, the question is, will Franny and Zooey by J.D. Salinger be going onto my bookshelf? The answer is hell no. Just like the last book, Breakfast at Tiffany's, it was a library book. I'm returning the library book. I'm not going to waste my money on it. But, am I glad I read it? Yeah. I'm happy to go into stuff with an open mind to try and expand my wheelhouse. However, through the, I believe, 4 or 5 books that I have read along the weekend reader's journey, where I've read classical literature or classical books or books that have deemed, classic, iconic books for the ages, I just don't understand it. So, yeah, I haven't enjoyed any of them. So, yeah. Franny and Zooey, you haven't made my bookshelf, I'm sorry. So, as it customs here on the Weekend Readers, as one book closes, another book has to open, and it is now time to find out what the next read is for the Weekend Readers Book Club and Bookworms. Last year, I said to everybody that we're coming back in 2024, we're going to do some non-fiction, and we're going to do some series of books. Like book series, like trilogies, or is it called duologies? That might be the right sense for 2 books. I don't know. So we've done non-fiction. We did the LeBron book. We did a second basketball book as well. So it is now time to head a series. And Bookworms, I'm excited. We can confirm that the next read for the Weekend Readers is Book 1 of the Hannibal Lecter trilogy. Yes, we are reading Red Dragon. Ha! Then we're going to be reading The Silence of the Lambs. Then we're going to be reading Hannibal. So we're doing it in order. So Red Dragon by Thomas Harris. You are the next read for the Weekend Readers Book Club. So Bookworms, that was my review and probably rant of Franny and Zooey by J.D. Salinger and classic books around the world. I'm sorry if I've offended anybody. These are my views and my views alone. And as I said in the last podcast, I think I've just came to a realization that classic literature, or what is deemed as classic literature, doesn't gel well with me in relation to what I'm wanting to get out of a reading experience. When I find it a struggle to read a book and I'm not connecting to anybody, or I'm just getting raged because the character from the first story turns up in the second story, and I'm like, I didn't like her in the first story because I don't really understand what was going on, because she seemed to have a nervous breakdown and turned into a Fruit Loop, and now she in the second book. I'm just, yeah. So, again, that's my opinion. But yeah, everybody's entitled to their opinion, and everybody likes different literature. That's the great thing about reading. Everybody has different genres that they go to. So yeah, it is what it is. But Bookworms, I'll leave you there. Thank you for listening to this episode. And until next time, happy reading.